पुण्य श्रवण कीर्तना हृदयन्तोऽस्ति अपत्राणि विदुनोति सहस्रतम् नष्टप्रायेषु अपद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 6, verses 6 to 8. Yes. Okay, so text 6. Asanana jivitam advarsaya loka sapala kupitena yasmin tam asudevam priyaya vihina Shama Payadvam Hridivedam Durukte. Let's keep going down, Prabhu. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Brahma also advised them that Lord Shiva is so powerful that by his anger, all the planets and their chief controllers can be destroyed immediately. Also, he said that Lord Shiva was especially sorry because he had recently lost his dear wife and was also very much afflicted by the unkind words of Daksha. Under the circumstances, Lord Brahma suggested it would behoove them to go at once and beg his pardon. Next verse. Naham na yajno na cha yuyam anye yadeha bhajo muniyascha tattvam vidu pramana balavirayorva yasyatma tantasya kupayam vidhishet. Translation. Lord Brahma said that no one, not even himself, Indra, all the members assembled in the sacrificial arena, or all the sages could know how powerful Lord Shiva is. Under the circumstances, who would dare to commit an offense at his lotus feet? Purport. After Lord Brahma advised the demigods to go to Lord Shiva and beg his pardon, it was suggested how he should be satisfied and how the matter should be placed before him. Brahma also asserted that none of the conditioned souls, including himself and all the demigods, could know how to satisfy Lord Shiva. But he said, it is known that he is very easily satisfied. So let us try to satisfy him by falling at his lotus feet. Actually, the position of the subordinate is always to surrender to the Supreme. That is the instruction of Bhagavad Gita. The Lord asks everyone to give up all kinds of concocted occupation and simply surrender unto him. That will protect the conditioned souls from all sinful reactions. Similarly, in this case, Brahma also suggested that they go and surrender unto the lotus feet of Lord Shiva. For since he is very kind and easily satisfied, the action would prove effective. Text 8. Saitam adhesya suran ajastute samanvita pedibasa prajese yaya swadishnyanam nilayam puracha kailasham adri pravamam priyam prabho. Translation. After thus instructing all the demigods, the pitas, and the lords of the living entities, Lord Brahma took them with him and left for the abode of Lord Shiva, known as the Kailasha hill. Purport. The abode of Lord Shiva, which is known as Kailasha, is described in the 14 verses which follow. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Thapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Dadati Swapatikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Desha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sati Gaura Bhattavanda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo. Hare Krishna, everyone. Seeking blessings from everybody that's assembled here so that I can speak in the right attitude, the right information, and not have any of my own interpretations while speaking on these verses. So the last chapter, all in all, this pastime, right? Lord Shiva's pastime and Sati Devi giving up her body and this whole interaction. So every time we have these pastimes, and especially Canto 4 has a lot of these pastimes, right? So what are we getting out of these things? What are we learning from all of these pastimes? So it is very important for us not just to read and go through these verses and all of that, but rather really take some time to reflect and take those teachings and see how we can apply those in our own lives as well, right? So I'm just kind of a little bit of summarizing. Again, I did listen to His Grace Bhaya Hari Prabhu's class, which very beautifully he pointed out a lot of the teachings. So I'm just going to be speaking on those here. So the first section of teachings was in connection with Lord Shiva. So by worshipping of Lord Vishnu, everyone is worshipped. So he did not consider it as an offense when Lord Shiva did not get up to greet Daksha, right? He did not stand up because he was meditating on Lord Vishnu in his mind, and all living beings, including Daksha, were respected when he was doing that meditation on Lord Vishnu. So that's one important one, understanding Lord Vishnu's position. And when somebody is in that state, then that kind of supersedes everything else. External standing up or anything, it doesn't matter. That was superseding that act. Number two, the devotee acts for welfare of everyone. So when Daksha cursed Lord Shiva, he was silent. We saw that. After there was cursing, counter cursing, but in all of this, Lord Shiva stayed silent because he really cared for the welfare of everyone. And then later, when Sati Devi asked to go to the sacrifice, he asked us to stay. This was also for her own welfare and for also everybody's welfare, because he could predict already what was going to happen. And that was the reason where he said, kind of not to go. So that is again, a devotee acts for welfare of everyone. That's the nature of devotees. And number three, great personalities are not subject to mundane rules. So Lord Shiva not standing to receive Daksha. So that's standing up, right? When a personality comes in, it's like a general etiquette. But when we talk about great personalities, it doesn't apply to them. So it is very important to understand that the great personalities, it doesn't affect them. But however, we should not try to copy that. Like we should not immaturely try to think that, oh, I'm okay if I don't follow the four regulative principles, or I am okay if I kind of, let go of some things like that. But this only applies to great personalities. And Srila Prabhupada would also quote, right? Like, you want to act like the things that Lord Shiva did otherwise, but then are you able to take the poison and drink it like Lord Shiva did? Or even Lord Krishna. He is actually the source of everything. He is the maintainer and everything, right? So when he was doing those pastimes with the gopis, all of that, we have to understand his position, that he is basically the proprietor of everyone anyways, right? And he also lifted the Govardhan hill, and Prabhupada would quote that, are you able to lift the Govardhan hill, right? So where people would try to imitate the other kind of things, and they think that, if Krishna could do that, how could we not, right? So again, going back to the point is that great personalities are not subject to mundane rules. Number four is like, while devotees may forgive, the Lord does not forgive the offender. So in this also, Lord Shiva did not take direct offense to all the insults by Daksha. But as the events transpired, Daksha was punished. And that was really, right, the Lord's approval, I guess I should say that. Because even with Amrish Maharaj, we know that Amrish Maharaj did not take offense. However, Lord Vishnu was not happy with that. And he did ask Durvasa Muni, go take forgiveness from Amrish Maharaj. So again, devotees are very kind-hearted, big-hearted, right? They'll forgive, but the Lord will not forgive the offender, especially when any offense is committed against his dear devotee. So that was all the kind of teachings from Lord Shiva's, the whole thing. And now let's look at teaching from Daksha's behavior. What do we learn from Daksha? So the first thing is how lust makes a person hard-hearted. So Daksha it was mentioned, Daksha was expert in sex. The nature is that people who are like that, they only think of themselves. He calmly stood by when his daughter burnt herself. Then a second point is lust, pride, and anger are the three gateways to hell. And we see that from Bhagavad Gita, right? These are the gateways to hell. And in Daksha's behavior, we see that he manifested all of these. His general disposition was lusty. He had pride in his heart, and that resulted in cursing Shiva out of anger. Then the next point we see is that one offense feeds upon itself and causes many more offenses. So Daksha's root offense was envy to Lord Shiva. Because of that, he criticized Lord Shiva, and the sages stood by when his daughter gave up her body. So, this is so common, right? Even in our just environment and all of this, have you noticed sometimes it could be one negative reaction and then it kind of does the domino effect where it leads to one more thing, leads to another thing, and it just kind of goes on and on. So to be so careful to cut it, like nip it in the bud, right? When it happens like that. So that one offense feeds upon itself and causes many more offenses. Next one, an offensive person is unable to take good advice. The sages that were present had asked Daksha not to leave the yajna, but he simply ignored and he walked away. So when a person is unable to take advice, we know that the person has an offensive mentality. Again, very practical. We see that, and even in our own behaviors and also in people around us. I think this is something we can easily observe. Next, we see how a materialistic mentality makes one intolerant to offenses against one's own self and very tolerant against offenses to others. So this can be seen from Daksha's behavior. So that's again a nature of a materialistic person. He was so intolerant to a minor thing of Lord Shiva not standing up when he arrived. But when his daughter gave up her body, he tolerated that so easily. So that's again the nature we have to pay attention, very close pay attention. Like if anything is done to us, we cannot tolerate. But anything happens to others, we just quietly stand and watch and observe, right? So that's really, it should be the other way. We should really be able to tolerate anything that happens to us, but we should not tolerate any offense that is being done to another Vaishnava. Then the next one is nature of offense is that it destroys both material and spiritual opulence. One cannot think that I can be offensive and still maintain my material opulence. So from this example, we can see that Daksha lost everything. Ultimately, he also lost his life. All of this happened because of Vaishnava Aparad. Next, it is nature of those who are materially invested to find faults with those that are transcendentally situated. Daksha's anger preceded the destruction at the yajna. He was angry. He was envious because Lord Shiva was high in his spiritual opulence, and that's why he was trying to find fault with Lord Shiva. Next, importance of acting according to adhikar. It was okay for Lord Shiva to neglect the rules and regulations, but for Daksha at his level, he could not have done that. He should have respected Lord Shiva. So that's the whole point. Next one, association of offensive people is as bad as being offensive. So we have to be very careful, devotees, who we associate with. So Daksha is having offensive attitude. And it spread to Brigumuni, it spread to Nandishwar, and it spread to everybody that was there, right? There was so much of this cursing, counter cursing, and even here there was so much of this fight going on. So everybody suffered because of association. Not completing a yajna is considered a sin. Incomplete yajna is considered inauspicious. Devatas are usually invited in the beginning, right? We know when we have seen Damodar Prabhu do the yajnas in the temple, right? They are invited in the beginning, they are worshipped, and then, in the ending, they are all being like thanked for being there. But when a yajna is incomplete, it causes a big offense. So everyone suffered because of that behavior of offensive. So again, association with offensive people is equally as bad as being offensive. So we have to be very careful. The nature of anger and envy is that it creates more anger and envy. Again, the domino effect. We get angry, have the envy, it feeds on itself and does that compounding thing. So point is that we should be very careful about association. Good association is potent, so is bad association. So let's look at the teachings from Sati Devi. The first is that bodily absorption in the self, family, etc., is a great hindrance to spiritual advancement. So again, Sati Devi kind of showed that she was absorbed to going to meet her family, and she did not listen to the advice of her guru, Lord Shiva, who is her spiritual master, right? But because of her absorption, she didn't listen. She wanted to go. The second is that one should never tolerate offense against the devotee of the Lord. So Sati Devi spoke about it from the teachings, right? She speaks very well that a person who committed offense should really die, quit the body, or leave the place where it is happening. And so many of those teachings are given, like cannot offend a Vaishnava. Third, greatness or the lack of greatness can be understood by how one regards one's good and bad qualities in others. This is a very important point too again. The guideline is to describe sadhu or asadhu. The nature of a sadhu is to look at the good and ignore the bad. Whereas for asadhu, it is exactly the opposite. And to the extent they do it, they are, good, better, or best, whatever. So again, Vaishnava Aprad, how forgiving are we when we look at somebody's qualities and we see, are we trying to blow up the small, what do you say, shortcomings somebody has? Or are we good at forgiving the shortcomings and really zoom into the positive qualities they have, right? Something to reflect upon. How are we behaving when we are others? Then Sati Devi, how she rejects everything that is not conducive to spiritual advancement. She rejected her father because he was offensive. She rejected her body because it is not connected to one, because it was connected to one who is offensive. So we also have to be very careful that we reject things that are not conducive to spiritual things. The next one was the nature of true love is to keep it hidden. So Sati Devi beautifully plays the role of a materialistic wife, just so she can go to the yajna and avenge the insults to her husband. She was burning in this fire and wanted to atone the sin she committed by staying silent when her father spoke offensive words against Lord Shiva. She didn't mention it to Lord Shiva, but she acted as a materialistic. So we have to understand that true love doesn't advertise itself. It's perceived rather than demonstrated. See how true is that? Like, especially in the Western culture, right? There's a lot of the speaking, oh, I love you so much. I love you. All the time it's like speak, 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 speak. But what are your actions? What does it show? Because this is a very important point. So see, the true love is to be perceived rather than all these fluffy words and all these things, so that's a very good lesson again, I thought, from there. Devatas, what do we learn from the Devatas? Moving on, having committed an offense, one must quickly take shelter. And this is, like the Devatas approached Lord Brahma, right? And they were trying to take shelter. And Lord Brahma was recommended, now you have to go quickly and take shelter from Lord Shiva. Second point, asking for forgiveness against the one to who the offense was committed. So I cannot just keep feeling regret in my mind. I need to go approach the person who I committed offense against and ask for forgiveness. So that's the important point. And here it's already 6 o'clock, and I can just kind of put the rest of the 3 verses summary. I think I can put it in the chat. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much again for giving me this opportunity to describe.